2,000 plus. I don't even know how many games we're going to get. I'm a little nervous, frankly, that we're not going to have enough games in 2,000 plus. That's how it was when I first did this task a while back. As I've said before, said it yesterday, a problem with the dojo is we don't have a really good critical mass when it comes to, I think 2,000, 2,100 we might have enough, but then beyond that it gets a little thin. Buck Duck is in the chat. Buck Duck, I have asked the person involved in our conversation about the incident. We're going to take it from there. Falk is here too. Great. So, let's get to it. And I don't actually have, this would be different, is I have one game, just one game from in the 2000-2100, so we're going to do it a little differently today. We're going to go over here. And first thing I actually want to do is let's just go to the scoreboard and look at what's going on in this cohort. So here we got Buck Duck in the chat, number one. Crushing, dude. Crushing over here. Look at that. Nice. Here we have the famous Half-Lives. Half-Lives has been putting in some good work. It's a little confusing because dude's, but I think he just started with the German. He transferred everything to OTB. There's some questions. Cranky Old Man Gaming also graduated, and I put one of his annotations into 1900, 2000. And so that is our, we got 14, and New Master's also doing some good work. Some of these people I don't know, and one of the reasons I don't know them is because when you get this high up the ladder, it's not like you're going to be graduating all the time, right? You might get one graduation is a big deal. Whereas I know the names of a lot of the lower rated players because let's say you started the program at 300, well, you're probably going to graduate kind of soon, right? That's just the way it is. So I know the names of those players more than these names, and of course that's incorrect. I should be paying attention for a variety of reasons to these names, but that's just the nature of me doing the graduate show every week that I have more of an awareness over there. Now, let me just stress, these are not the only people in this cohort. These are just the people who are active, which means that Jack is like, you're out of the scoreboard, buddy, if you haven't done anything in the last 30 days. So we're going to find names that aren't just these ones when we go look at the game database. I have myself a delicious coffee this morning. Hi, Abdul. Magyar Zerker, I'm sorry I missed it, but when are we supposed to switch to an over-the-board rating from online? That's a fair question. I would say it's first of all a case that some people, especially in the lower cohorts, they're having the hardest time even understanding what playing online means, right? My sense for you, Falk, is for sure you should be thinking of transferring to over the board and using that as your basis. Some people, let's say, for example, Half-Lives just started out, and so, their rating is much lower than their online rating. That could happen. Jack's, here's a fun example with this dude. Jack's over-the-board rating, normalized to dojo rating, is about 1,200, and online he's like 1,600. He's trying, but you're not going to get less games, obviously, at over the board. It might be deflated, and it'll be more stochastic, meaning, since you play less games, it might be harder to get a pure measure, at least right away, right? Eventually, it will, of course, be fine. But and you see it here, in general, we're now over 2,000. Only Cranky Old Man Gaming and Adrian are doing it this way. And Cranky Old Man Gaming definitely needs to. I mean, it's in their self-interest. I'll just say it again though. If you're not playing over the board at all, that's the exception to the rule. Here, I'll show you something else kind of interesting in regards to this. We'll go to the games database after this. So if you go to stats and you look at the rating systems, you can see that the lower cohorts are basically all online ratings, and then as you progress, it becomes more and more over the board. Makes sense. That's what counts for the higher rated players. Okay, let's go games and we'll go see what we have for this cohort. Look at this, my friends. We got 157 games. That's pretty good, dude. Wow, that's great, man. Now, I have a feeling it's going to be mostly the same customers. Like Buck Duck's got a lot. Half-Lives has a lot. Coach Q. Oh, actually, it's interesting. Oh, this is so cool, actually, Coach Q. I didn't understand this first. This is Dylan Quert. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he does a podcast out of LA. I met the guy at the US Open. I have a feeling this is going to be a game of his from the US Open, so that'll be interesting. And the Chess Archives, he has some games in 1900, 2000 as well, so that will be cool to look at him. Thomas Nielsen. Oh, we had a lot of Thomas Nielsen, a lot of Buck Duck. Saigu Chess, I'm just looking through here. So we will definitely get 5 good games. Now, Buck Duck, since you were in the chat, you could do me a favor. It would be cool if you could direct me to the games that you feel are the best annotated, not the best played. I'm not interested in that, right? But the best annotated. That's what would be interesting for me. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So go all the way back. Because now let me just say this process, I eventually want this process to become something that's more inside the cohort. In fact, it could be both. It could be like I establish, or you guys establish a list of games, and then I go through them and narrow it down. Like you give 10 games and I narrow it down to 5. It could be something like that. Or maybe at a certain point you say, maybe in like a year's time, you say, these are the games that we think should be in there. These are the games we think should not be in there. That kind of thing. Just so that you also are a part of this process. All right, let's start with Pisantan. Let me click on Pisantan. I feel like, graduated already once. Using the FIDE. Beautiful. And I just... One thing I'm not sure about, but I kind of believe in, okay, is the idea that if the dojo is really going to make it be great, we need more people like Pisantan who are just like they're working their nuts off, right? And they're putting some games in, and they're higher rated, and that these higher rated players could both attract lower rated players into the program and also help the lower rated players maybe do some coaching, right? Yeah. Okay, so cool. Actually we could click on it this way, and so we won't click on that one. Let's just get a sense of this one here. Oh, the World Seniors, dude. Okay. I haven't played the World Seniors yet. Maybe I'll meet Pisantan. Okay. Already a very frisky position. Okay. So G3, definitely soft, as they say. Okay, so he had an improvement in mind. D6, good move. Yeah, to me, it's all about the knight on G4. If the knight gets pushed around, then maybe white can claim they've got something. If not, which is now not going to happen, then no good. So I think this is great. Now, this kind of note I don't think is helpful. We're saying queen e2, f6, like it's just some random game. Like is f6 forced? Not at all, right? And what's going on in this game? So g2, and now queen d3. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe to say something about this, it'd be nice to have a little bit more talk about what is happening in the position. And the options. So for me, I think black has a structural advantage now that white gave him with the thought of dominating the g4 knight. What is the structural advantage? It's this square and it's this file. But now that the knight isn't dominated, now we should start thinking of maybe doing other things. It is true that we have to solve this guy. And there's a slightly annoying pressure here. So one move that I would want to talk about would be knight e5, intending knight e3. Now this is controversial because it's not a developing move, and the knight.
Where's the iPad? Oh, can I have the iPad?
Yes, you can. So here the critical variation would be d4, I think. And we could talk about this position. I think probably the thing that would scare me most as black would be here, but we could talk about this position. And I really want to put the rook here, whether we castle long or we just put it there. We want to put the rook there. So for me, in terms of annotation, I would want to talk about just like what do we think would happen then on bishop d7. Okay, so queen d3. Queen e2 is the critical variation. Knight b4. Right. Knight a3. Queen e2, knight e2, knight f2. Very clever. Okay, it's at least interesting. And my knight is stuck. So one of the things that I'm observing from Paolo here is that there's a little bit of nervousness on his part. Like he's trying to knock the guy out instead of playing principled moves. And a lot of times we do that when we're not comfortable. Like we're playing on someone higher rated and we're trying to like murk up the waters, you know? White might also have had some fears around queen c2. So bishop c3 loses, queen c1. Bishop a3 is just kind of weird. And we could still do knight b4 stuff. And d3, then you can go knight b4, and there might be a hassle in the castle. Okay, so these are just some things to talk about. And I think you want to say that knight c3 is a problem because it blocked the bishop on b2. Okay, I'm going to stop here. It was a very interesting game, but there's just too many questions here that are outstanding, right? I think, okay, give it a try. Because, like, first of all, isn't white now fine? Hasn't white now achieved fineness? Hmm. Okay, so good annotations. Let's leave that there for the moment. I'm pumped that this dude is playing World Seniors. That's great. Now we got Cranky Old Man Gaming. This guy generally is very consistent in terms of good work. Yeah. He has another game that I put in the 19-2000 with this A6 move, the Yanowski, which is a little bit, Any case, this is a known thing that people have been experimenting with. Okay. I'm assuming castles would be the more normal move. Okay, and then he talks about castles, something like be a weird move to play, but yeah, you're gonna have to play either castles or something like h3 after knight d2, right? Oh, and then he gets this position. Okay. I'm certainly prejudiced to think that black is better here. Might not be true, but okay. It would be nice to have like a discussion about what's happening, right? So the asset is this bishop. It's amazing. White maybe can think about talking to these squares. Or if I castle short to attack me. You could also claim that this knight is at least controlled at the moment, and that this bishop isn't doing that much. So big moment for black, excuse me. Talks about rook c8, good. These are dude, Cranky Old Man Gaming. He might not be playing FIDE chess now or over the board chess yet. he's bringing it. That's a good note. Uh-huh. I was also thinking with if you play for c5, you're going to get a similar thing. You're going to c5 takes, knight b3, and knight d4 is going to happen. Okay, I'm into this. Now here I just want him to talk to me about different plans for white. So for example, the issue is if white ever plays for e4, then the dark squares really are hosed, just completely hosed, right? If he was going to play for f3 now, now would be the moment. In general, once they play f3 though, that's our cue to play c5, right? Because then when they take, then this pawn is weak. So white has a real question about what to do here. My thought was that white was going to play for knight b3, knight a4, rook c1 kind of stuff, just to try to hold me back a little bit, to occupy some squares. Now what I got yelled at yesterday for saying my stream is not always that interactive. Sorry about that. Because I don't always look at chat. I do eventually look, okay? It just takes me a second. And so later we're going to look for Chess Buck. We're going to look at the game with Peter Sfana. If he has a different game, he can tell me that one too. Oh, nice. So Timpa, who I believe is in the 2000, is training with Peace Undone. That's beautiful. Nice, dude. That's just cool that people are meeting, hanging out on the dojo. Okay, so here we go. Boom. And now, I'm just going to go ahead and admit, this would be a hard position for me to really understand as black. I would believe in my position, though. What I really want is a home for my bishop on e6, and especially the knight on f6. I don't understand rook he1, though. Well, I guess now we do. Now we do. I think f3 is a mistake, and c5 is the standard reaction to said mistake. Maybe you could have done other things too, but this is the standard reaction. Makes a lot of sense. And white is now getting grief on the dark squares. And what do we have? Well, we got this beautiful unopposed dark square bishop. Dude takes. That's probably incorrect. We should talk about it. Now, our man, Cranky, doesn't believe in his position. I believe in your position. I believe in your position, buddy. Played in 60 seconds. Nice. I had planned on this move, so no reason to waste time. Okay, now of course we could have put it on c8 too, but I agree. d7 certainly looks natural. Okay, so he has a series of moves going on apparently with queen a5. I'm not sure I know what they are. Okay, so queen b3. Not sure it's a great move. Threatening this pawn. We could also play king a8. I would be interested in king a8 because this little tender touch over here is something I'd worry about if I was white. So knight f5. This is something, by the way, that is just a clear mistake, even if it isn't a tactical mistake. Okay. So the problem with this move, even if like tactically nothing was wrong with it, is that you've just unleashed my beast, dude. My beast is furious right now. I want dude to tell me though what he thinks white should have done, right? So white's just been going down a wrong train here for a while. So for example, the milk has already gone bad here, right? And one bummer is we can't even play knight b3 because of c4. But we definitely should be thinking, hey, I just need to let dude take and then recapture this way. That's my only shot, like maybe something sad like knight e2. Because here black is doing great. Maybe bishop f5. I don't know if it's even playable because of bishop b4 though. Okay, so I like king e8. Incorrect. And now he's host. This is the position my opponent was aiming for, but it seems obvious to me that black is now clearly better as he is getting a dangerous advance past pawn that is hard to challenge. Okay. And here you can see he was so happy to get the pawn that he didn't consider f5. You know, it's like when you grab the treasure. You grab the treasure. Now, arguably, we're still winning here. It's more complicated, but we might still be winning because that pawn is just an animal. All right, so he goes for the frisky. It looks hard to me. And now queen f4. I'd want to talk about knight c3. Knight c3 is complicated. He says, so right, whether e2 is right depends on a lot of analysis, and queen f4 isn't the only move. But now it seems like we have seems like we've lost the thread here. For example, is this playable? And then if check, I go here. Seems at least like a question to ask, right? Always repeat. Very good. That's true. Always repeat. I had seen this far when playing e2 and could not find a forced win. Now I can see there is no win and white is fine, though he has to be careful. Oh, interesting. Okay, so e2 was speculative. Interesting that he saw this far, and to me there was other questions besides just this. Oh, nice move, cranky old man. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, that is so painful. He doesn't even give rook d8 a question mark. He's just like, dude, this is just the end. It's just the end. Oh, man. Oh, no. All right, I want to feature that game. So let me just tell you about my process. When I feature the game, it goes into the featured games that you can find on the news feed over here at the top. And then I go back and, I'll feature all the ones that feel plausible. And then I'll go back and have a look at them. And make a final final judgment. Ultimately, it's always going to be a little subjective, of course. Okay. Someone's writing me on the Discord. Okay. So, all right. Next up, we have Chris Atkinson, Colty Chess Club Championship. Nice. Okay. I'm gonna follow. Activity. Doing some work. I can't tell you how happy I am for the people that we're getting some players who are, going for national master and stuff, doing the work here. That's great. That is really good. Even if it is just the beginning of some work. Because I just want to say, when I was a kid, if I had this, would have just been fantastic. Because I was doing all kinds of things, and I didn't really have, I just, whatever I could find at the library was what I was doing. I had no direction, nobody giving me direction. Okay. Nothing wrong with this. Okay, I definitely want to talk about h6. I want to talk about h3. I need to talk about this move too. Yeah, all these moves I want to talk about. But, definitely an interesting position. So once g4 goes down, black needs to think about different plans. That should be the clue for, in the game and in the analysis, to be like bows. It's time for us to think about stuff. So for example, we have to have a variation with f5. He does, but I need an eval. It's true that knight h4 at the end maybe is a problem. Then I have different moves to consider. Obviously, knight d4 followed by c6 can't be done. And although it's a little weird, bishop f6 is interesting, with the intention that someday I might play bishop g5, but also just putting my bishop maybe here. That's a little weird, Kraai. It's a little weird. And another sneaky move would be knight e7, intending g5, knight g6, knight f4. Yeah, so lots of plans here for black to consider. And it's important for the analysis because this is a King's Indian. You're going to get similar positions, and you'll want to know how to think about it. I think what's just a simple fact about this move, too, is we really put the pressure on white now because white has to worry about two things, f5 and g5, knight g6. And there's no d4 immediately because this guy's hanging. That's just a nice omen for us. Also, we might just play c6 next move, killing the knight. Buck Duck's putting in some of his games that we'll check out in a second. And then we've got 3 games here. I'm just writing them What is the website? This is called Chess Dojo, and I'll put the link in the chat. If you want to improve your chess, I can't pronounce your name. This is the place to do it. There it is. Okay, so let's leave this one. Good notes. Yeah, but Christopher Baus, I hope you make NM. And this is the time, my friend. You just need to do a little deeper analysis, and it's going to get there. Okay, now we have half-lives. I think I have this under the old one, actually, this DA person. Where am I? No, I don't have it there. And Half-Life sent me actually a game that he was thinking I should go over. So here's the one Half-Life is sending me. Aus Augsburg. One thing fun about the chat in the morning is that because I start so early in my day, I get to communicate with our Germans. And our Germans are obviously later in the day over there. I lived in Germany for a long time. And the fun thing about the annotation work is hard work. And it's the Germans, boss. It's the Germans who are doing it more than any other. Now, let me do this. I don't care about grammar too much. But this is a mistake that also English speakers are doing. Sometimes I complain about grammar and people are like, we're not native speakers. But this one is one that English speakers are doing too, and it kills me. It's not loosing after loosing. It's losing with one O. Loosing is an entirely different verb. Okay, so here we go. This is half-lives. Okay, this is all kind of known business. And I believe knight c3 is the kind of normal move. Right. Long speed, short point. Good. So I think f5 is a question mark. Right. This, by the way, what's interesting about this line to me for white is it's very popular at this kind of 2,000, 2,100 level. So in a lot of ways, one thing that's interesting about this level is if you do want to dial in your openings, you're going to want to think about this weird stuff. And I think this is a good point where f5 is certainly a mistake, precisely for what Dude is saying here. Uh-oh. And Abdul is saying f5 is the main move nowadays. Okay. Okay, good. So, I definitely think d3 is the question. And now we need something amazing for black, or we're going to be worse. Okay, so how did this position happen? This would be if bishop b5. Okay, so d3. And maybe Abdul, who is an opening expert, can confirm if this is the right way of doing it. Okay, fascinating. So right, if we're going to play this f5 stuff, we're going to have to do something like this. Okay, good. talking about queen g3 and the bishop d2. Right. It feels like bishop d2 is a pawns are people situation because, right, black is not playing d4 to take your pawn on c3. Black is playing d4 to prevent d4 and to cut you from the e5 pawn. I definitely am in favor of bishop e6. And it might be nice to know a little bit about the times in this game, like who is this person we're playing in Augsburg, you know. And that one's really hard to understand. All right, grammar police one more time. He's not losing the pawn, he's losing the pawn. Okay. Now, okay, so if we're going to think about it, the reason that I would say maybe to take is if we were concerned about c4. Right? I know why he played a3. It's a really bad reason to play a3, but I know why he did it. And then boom, 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 boom. Okay, that's a good variation. That's a good variation. Dude played a3 because he's worried that if he plays rook b1, he's going to lose the... It's so funny though, because if he plays rook b1, he's also going to lose the pawn on a3. No, I take it back. I'm a good chess psychologist. I'm usually pretty good at figuring out why people do the things they do. He's concerned that on c4, some kind of knight b4 or bishop b4 is going to happen. All right, so a3. Now, I think we deserve to be winning. Let's put it that way. Okay. Right, and then this would be the moment, because if you're going to take on c3, because bishop c5, it's still going to be a great position after c4, but it will at least kill your bishop on c4, on c5, when you do it. So I agree with you about d takes c3, c4, continuing the plan. White's in big trouble. Castles. And g5 looks great. I think we should at least talk about bishop takes c4. Bishop b4 is a good move. Now, what's funny about this bishop b4 is it actually makes a3 have a little bit of sense. Like, clearly when white played a3, he didn't intend to play bishop b4. But now he gets a little juice over here. Okay, now, taking on c5 is definitely a mistake and is an example of prematurely releasing the tension, right? Because black never wants to take. So either rook a b1 or rook fb1 are things that that white should consider. Now, Barracks is making a fair question. Was it wise for black to go castles? And it's certainly, there's an element of danger to it. But the good news for us is that the white queen is nowhere near our king. And it's useful to have the rook on the d file anyway. Right? One thing, by the way, too, about c4, white playing c4, that I want to stress, is that while it takes a tempo to do it, by closing the game, it makes white's lack of development, right, less important, right? So the value of time increases as the board opens up. So it definitely, there's a moment of danger, but notice what he wants to do. It's very clear. He wants to play h6 and g5, and it's a real thing. Bishop b4, exclam. Now, if white had played rook a b1, at least there's some thoughts. And by the way, either rook has the cruel intention of maybe taking and playing rook b5. No entiendo. Here I finally realized that my opponent basically says that his opening idea failed and they will not create much attacking chances. Right. And then, right, actually rook fb1, we have bishop takes c4. By the way, maybe I should ask myself, if rook fb1, does black just get to do that? Maybe. That might be a fair point. In which case, by the way, just play king h1, man, get out of there. Don't take. That you can't play chess. Can't play chess like that. Okay. I don't know about white taking. I mean, he's in trouble anyway, but. Now I would want him to tell me what he thought about this ending. Did you think it was winning? Did you think it was just better? Because if you think it's not completely winning, you should consider other moves here. Because this dude's in a world of pain. He can't even move his pieces, Bows. He can't even move his pieces. You know. This is called the world of pain. A rook going to g8 is an interesting move. Intending f4, g4, f3. You know, that's a thing. Okay, so that's just something I would want to ask about. I definitely think we don't really want knight d4. So knight d4. Okay, so he talks about c5. He talks about e6. e8. I would be the most concerned about probably rook a b1. Just rook b1. It's not rook a b1. Yeah, and I'm worried about activity from white. Even if he loses a pawn, he has chances to live. So if we go back. Now I actually think knight d4 is better than on the previous move because now there's no rook b1. So that's an interesting move. Now I have to admit I would never consider 97 either. Here's a variation. This might be a computer variation. Well, let me just say, maybe it is easy, but make this nervous. Okay. So f4. To prepare a combination of rook d3, g4, and rook e3. So then this goes down. Oh yeah. That's terrible. One thing you can see at this is that white believes that they can play chess just by sitting and being passive. And you can at a certain level, but yeah, you start getting above 2,000, 2,100, you're going to get hurt. Got to be active. Yeah, that's a problem. Anytime we allow knight takes d4 isn't going to be good. So what move should we do after that? Okay. This is interesting. Now, I just want to say I still believe in the black position. By the way, I want to just say that even if you miss c3, which is kind of an amazing move, your instinct should not be to play rook e6. Yeah, that shouldn't be your instinct. Because rooks are terrible blockaders. Your instinct should be to put the king over there. So knight d4 is fine. I like it. That seems winning. But I'm just trying to say, if you had if for whatever reason you didn't like knight d4, then I think king d7 is the one you should be thinking about. Because the king is the best blockader of a passed pawn in the end game, not in the middle game. Yeah. And that seems like white would have to have something very special after king d7. Okay. Hi, Renga. So rook e6, that's probably a fair point, Abdul. Oh, it goes passive. Okay. So an issue for us here is we would like, of course, to move the knight, but to go like a5. But once we do, of course, then his knight gets to play knight d4. So this is the variation that gets looked at. And that knight b7 is very typical in a lot of Nimzo positions that this gets played. Okay, so king d7. And now I assume rook e4 is the move, right? Okay. We want to play b6 anyway. All right, so knight e5. Pop, pop, pop. Good. Check to the miserable king. Okay, good. That's a good variation. Uh-huh. Yeah. Now, by the way, this play by white is, of course, not bringing it. Now, knight e7, exclam. Mr. Bowes. Wait a second. Wait a second. Okay, I think I understand. Now, he does not talk about the other moves, but I think his intention here is either c6 or a6. Is this true? Let's try it this way. Whew, la, 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 la. With the full spice of life going on here. Wow. All these positions, we should at least be better because our rook is stronger. I feel like maybe I'm such an obvious variation. He had to have some idea in here after knight e1. Now his knight's miserable. Look, so this is the classic case of playing a passive opponent. And now it's just crispy critters. Seems, I mean, b5's natural. Right, he talks about knight f3. Okay, this is a great, it all comes down to a kingside attack in the end. Right, one thing actually was big for me and just thinking about endgames is to realize, right, you gotta attack, son. You gotta attack. Right, he talks about this. Check the miserable king. His pieces are too passive to do anything. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, this is beautiful. Okay. That was a great game, dude. That was a great game. Let's feature that game. Lumbos, hello. That was great, man. That was really good. Okay, so let's go back. It's not letting me go back. Why? I know why. So, we got a second with Cranky Old Man. So Cranky Old Man is playing Survivor nonstop over there. All right, we'll give Cranky another one here. Yeah, I actually played this a bunch as black with Bishop f3 and then Knight c6. Okay. This is a known moment. And then bishop c5 is a move of somebody who doesn't get it. Yeah, this is a famous position. Knight c6, queen f4, and oh, Kraai, are you gonna go deep? Are you gonna go deep? The big thing, very anti-intuitive, that Anand came up with in a pre-computer way. Maybe it wasn't just Anand, but it was this fascinating position to give up the bishop, and usually it goes something like this. Don't give credit to Anand. I take it back. This is Ulf Anderson who came up with this line, and the computer says it's maybe a little bit better for white, but ultimately it's like, how well do you understand this position? Okay, so bishop c5, clearly a mistake. Queen h4. So right, queen d3. By the way, the idea of queen d3 is like, at some point I might play for a knight g5, thing. Maybe after bishop g5. And you can see he's obsessed with e4. It's not a bad move, but it's not necessary. For example, in this position, that's an annoying move because I have a threat of snip, snop, and this kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. So, queen h4, a6, and he talks about knight c6 and bishop e7 was the move I was expecting, but did not analyze it all, since I can always move back to d4 and redecide what to do with my queen. Okay, fair. So bishop g5, bishop e7. Just thinking about it for a second. In addition to rook to e4, we can think about this. And e4 here is not just about the bind, of course, but like he's got a problem that his bishop will not be able to come back. Now, here I suspect black is toast. Let's say rook d1, threatening e5. We also have that in the cards. Oh, it looks terrible. Looks horrendous. Okay, so slow. We can criticize knight c6, by the way, because knight c6 ultimately is in the way of things, and the knight would rather go to d7. By the way, the computer playing knight a4, I don't know. I don't know, buddy. Knight a4, bishop e7, bishop e3. Yeah, that's obviously a computery situation. Right? And here what the computer is seeing is knight c6 blocked off the bishop, so there's no knight e4. Okay, so knight e7, a little weird. Can't be bad. Hard to meet. Here we go. Uh-oh. If that's the case, then we got to say, again, unnecessarily fancy, right? So wait a second. He says e4 is no longer a path to an advantage. and likes queen g5 instead of knight a4. Now, one of the rooks to d1, it seems like an obvious question too. Now, this is just a minor critique. He criticizes the moves in the notations, but not necessarily just the moves. But if it's true that black can survive here, then knight a4 was a mistake. Right. And it would be good maybe to talk about what he missed. Like, did he think he was winning the pawn maybe? For example, in this one, the computer's talking about bishop c6 with equality, but maybe you were afraid of the more natural bishop a6. So it'd be good to like just know which of the ones you felt was, what was the thing that drove you away from this. Because knight b2 is definitely the move of a dude who's like, uh-oh. I blew it, man, I blew it. Now, let's just say the obvious, but pawn takes pawn has to be, at least, we've got to think about other things, because now you just invited your knight back in. Knight b6 is definitely the frisky move. Knight e5 is a little bit more natural, whatever you want to call it. Here we need to talk about what's going on. H4 is interesting. Okay. We should say some more moves after H4 though. For example, H4, this is my little question that I'm concerned with. What's going to happen here? If we give up the C file, oh, you know. Looks good for black. Why didn't we go queen e3 first? Oh, I wanted to just say something obvious here too. Bishop f6 looks reasonable, but was this a path to a clear advantage for black? Right? Because we're going to win this, I think we're going to win the C file. And once we win the C file, it's going to be a long road for white. Why don't, what are we doing? I don't get queen f4. Okay. Bishop b2 was my expectation. I thought I saw an equalizing move, but I don't remember what it was. Bishop b2, rook c5. Very fancy. Rook c5, bishop takes. Rook c8, queen d2. Okay, I would say that's an advantage for black. Okay. So queen g5, queen b6, queen e7. Okay, white probably missed that. I want to talk about queen d7 here. Now, as is typical, when we get to this phase of the game, people neglect to do deeper work. There's still a lot going on here. And, for example, in addition to g6, there's the move h5, which makes more sense to me. And also, in this position, I can also consider a move, well, I can consider rook c7 to hold the line on the c file. And again, so let me just stress, in every one of these moves, mistakes are being made, and people just think it's just like they think like nothing's going on. No, things are happening. Trust me, things are happening. So, in general here, it's white's the one who has a shot at doing something. And so, what white should try, and this is important just to understand, is white should try to run the king. And the point is, even if we lost all these pawns, as long as this bad boy runs in the queen ending, that's the kind of thing we should be looking for. So one of the reasons to analyze your endgames is just like, oh, you have to understand, passed pawns in a queen ending mean more. So for example, that beginning of the endgame is totally, I would say, equal. Maybe black is a little bit better, but after king f2, I don't know what, maybe, it's objectively a draw, I don't know. But I do know that white's the one creating the juice in this position. Very difficult to know what black's supposed to do now, right? Like, if you just play lame-o moves, that's our dream. And now here's an example, then my pawn will move. Right, my pawn will move. Okay. Rise and grind, that's right. What's going on? Talk emojis. Okay. My good friends, it's that time of the day where I deserve a coffee. Actually, wait, I am going to feature that game because even though I had problems with it, it was a great annotation. And cranky old man, I will say, Bobs, it's time for you to join your cohort and do some OTB. It is time. Okay, so, okay, my friends, we are back. And what we're going to do is we're going to go click on Buck Duck. And I'm going to follow Buck Duck. And we're going to look now at activity. Buck Duck's doing the work, Bobs. This guy's doing the work, man. I had COVID a couple weeks ago, man. And I still got some phlegm deep in there. It's slowly going away. Okay, first of all, let me just look at this. So, Buck Duck gets to play in these great German tournaments. And if we want to, we could say maybe there we discern a small upward tick. That would be nice. And this is a great breakdown. Let's click around a little bit just to see what's going on. Okay, beautiful. Dude did the REP match. Fantastic. By the way, one of the goals I have once I finish this project is to make the REP match a little bit more user-friendly. Then we got middle game strategy. Beautiful. Oh my God, that's fantastic. Then we got tactics. Beautiful. Beautiful. Look at that. Oh, Buck Duck is doing the work, dude. Now, again, one of the things about the program is the idea is if you do everything, you'd make it to the next level. And for sure, with the lower cohorts, I feel really good about that promise, right? With the upper cohorts, myself included, it's like, oh, wow, this is hard. This is hard. And, you know, it's tough to make it to the next level, man, especially if you're at some kind of plateau, which maybe Buck Duck is. Okay, but otherwise this looks great. And I really want to spend the idea of the top of the cohort show, which Buck Duck is, at the top of his cohort, is to really give feedback about people who are putting in the work and then maybe haven't got to the next level. Now with dude, he doesn't have that much longer to go. So it's definitely possible for Buck Duck to make it. Okay, so let's look at some games, and Buck Duck gave me some of the ones to look at. Please let a hardcore REP mode even in Dojo 3.0. That's true. Oh yeah, we'll definitely take a look, Buck Duck. Okay, so first I'm going to look for an opponent named Peter Schwana. Here we go. So, first round of the new league season on board 4. Okay. Okay, so bishop e2, fine. And now bishop e3, which is an interesting system. Right. Now, I would say, Buck Duck, that this kind of thing, you don't need to write unless you feel like you're attracted to one of these other variations. I think of this as the main move. And here you can play a bunch of different stuff, bishop h4, and you can do what you did too. Bishop c1. Knight c6. Right, d5 is controversial because if he achieves the normal King's Indian setup, then our pieces aren't necessarily well placed for said setup. Now, let me just say, with this kind of thing, what you're saying here, this is very dangerous for, now you might get mated. Like, so regardless of whatever the engine thinks, yada, yada, this is a dangerous position for us. Okay, so h3, knight h6, and castle. Okay. Now, I do think d5 is dangerous, and it's the same reasons we just talked about, where if we don't have something special here, and for example, castles now would be even worse, because then either f5 directly or knight f7 first, and black is going to have a nice initiative against our king. One of the ideas of the bishop e3 thing, by the way, as I understand it, is to avoid castling, to just kind of try to be as flexible as possible and avoid castling. So I don't know what the best move is here, but definitely h4, g4, and bishop e3 could be thoughts here. On bishop e3, I assume we are afraid of f5, and maybe we should be. So, another really basic move that we can consider in this position is just to take this bad boy. From a practical perspective, I like this move a lot, because we then claim that in this position we're better. And then on fe, that also bishop e3, and in particular the knight on h6 is just a complete chump now. And this doesn't really change anything. We're making a structural claim, right? Yeah. Right. Okay. So this is, of course, some kind of theoretical position, but from a just human perspective, what I want to stress is this kind of stuff, even if the computer tells you you're okay, you got to be concerned. And what we want to do is we want to play against the knight. The knight is now the black's little problem child piece. And when we go for it this way, I think we are activating, or we're getting ourselves in a position where the knight probably is doing stuff. Okay, really cool that Buck Duck's in the chat. Okay, so castles. I'm into this castles move, by the way. Now, maybe you don't like it, but here's the idea. If you're going to castle, and then our intention is to say, look, I am never going to play d5. Or I would rather not. I'm only going to play d5 under some very favorable circumstance. So bishop d7, and you talk about knight ed4. And this is a nice variation. I think that's kind of typical. Now, one thing I'll say about this kind of position is black's not out of the woods yet, because our king has more pawns in front of it than white, than black. And if we just like park it, you could play queen d5 too if we wanted to, but just imagining this position. Black has some issues about how to fix their pieces, and we're going to say long-term our king is better. Now, should it maybe be roughly equal? Maybe. And maybe the variation is something like this. No, there's other ways he could do it too. But something like this. And we just have a nice thought of saying, hey, look, our king is better. Okay, but I agree with you. Bishop d7 slow. Bishop e3, okay. Good. I think in general, I like bishop e3. And you mentioned here de5. One thing from a human perspective that's really nice about de5 is it forces black to tell us what they want, right? One of the reasons, by the way, I like about de5 in the earlier variation is I'm still uncommitted to castling kingside. I might actually go queenside. So for example, in the one you didn't like, I'm definitely going to play here. I'm going to play here. I'm going to think about that move. Okay, but here we go. So I like the way you're playing. King h8. And then you talk about f5. de5. f4. This is the one that would have scared me a little bit. bishop d4 freaks me out. So hold on a second. Now, let me just say, one of the reasons King's Indian players are generally trained to not play f5 until the center has been closed with d5. So that's probably part of Black's motivation with King h8. What I think this variation definitely shows as well is the advantage of playing de before we play bishop e3, precisely because this f4 thing can become really dangerous for us. And d5 like this, super dangerous for us. Oh my God, we're probably going to get mated here. I'd rather be black. You know, I don't want to be black here. Yeah. Oh no, we're going to get mated both. He's going to play for g5, g4, either with knight f7 first or bishop f6, and there's going to be pain. Knight f7 also makes sense because it covers his weak point. And this is just like, oh man, this is not what we wanted. Okay, so good. I think this is correct. F5 is correct. I'm not sure what the correct variation for you after that is, in fact. It's a little bit hard to judge. One question I have too is on DE, F4, bishop D4. Can't I do this? Just to say that's your best piece, boss. And if you take back this way, then I do that to you. That seems like a hassle for us. Seems like we're clearly worse. So that's definitely F5 would have given you a lot of grief. And I think from a playing perspective, you just needed to be wary of that. And it seems like maybe you weren't wary of it when you played bishop e3. Okay, so here we go. King h8, c5. Okay. I think I'm okay with this. Okay, but there's one obvious question. If black now plays f5, what is happening? It seems like it's still really complicated. Okay, now maybe I'm missing something, but I just want to go back a second to see if there's anything a little bit simpler for us. So for example, if I play the natural queen d2, now let's say knight f7, there's other moves they could do. And let's now say I play rook ad1. Here the claim could be now f5 is never going to be bueno. So for example, f5 takes, and this is why they tell you not to play f5 until you have, until white is committed to d5, right? So that seems cleaner to me with queen d2. Very unpleasant for black. All right, c5, again, I think f5 has to be considered. One thing I think too, you're doing, Buck Duck, is you see c5. Yes, in a lot of positions, it's the cool move to do. But again, it's like we're not addressing his main thing, which is f5 with the knight coming to f5, right? Like this is the problem piece, and that's why queen d2 kills it, or at least it makes it more, keeps it a problem. Once he gets f5 in, I don't know. All right, So Buckduck's saying f5. Oh, so excuse me. So king h8, c5, f5, cd. Now maybe f4 is a move, by the way. But let's first just start here. What's next for us as white? Yeah, seems good for black. Or at least like he's not going to die a horrible death. He's not going to die a completely horrible death. Okay, but this certainly is a huge concession. All right. Now I think you are in full control. So the thing from an analysis point of view, right, is we have to, for no other reason, we got to look at f5. Then this is horrendo for the guy. How bad is it? That's an interesting question, honestly. Maybe it's not that bad. Okay. Maybe it just looks bad. Maybe it's not that bad in all fairness, because dude will still be playing for f5 here. This could be, I've often had problems in my own games where I can become tricked into thinking I'm much better when in fact maybe my position isn't that special. In fact, let me just go back 1/2 a second. So dude did this. Seems like we do have to take. Right. By the way, I like the queen d2 position much better than this one. Just because here I'm uncertain if I'm going to be able to control black's counterplay with f5. Okay, queen c2 is natural. He finally does it. We go for it. And now he goes for it, King's Indian style. Okay, and now we have a critical moment, right? Yeah. So cool. He did some analysis with Laurent, also in the dojo. Also has a game, I think, in 1900, 2000. And this is certainly interesting. Right, so what's the intention of bishop e5? We want to just kill the piece, and we want to delay the knight getting to f5. I think I might be dead. Yeah. This is a, by the way, this is just, let me make a little side note here. There is this concept out there, you call it pedagogical or just chess thinking concept, of trying to distinguish between dynamics and structure. Statics is usually called. Dynamics versus statics. And this is a good example of that kind of dynamic where white has all of the static advantages with the better king, the slightly better pieces, but black has potential to hurt us, right? And bishop b5 is a cool move because it's going to give up a pawn with the thought of saying, hey, buddy, I can give up a pawn, but keep all of my advantages and, prevent all the counterplay. Yeah, and this is a nice variation with knight f5. I think, for example, it would be possible to consider this variation. And we could even still consider this variation, but knight f5 is the bummer. That's the bummer for us right here. Right, don't want to see it. I want to keep that knight out of there. Okay, so f4 is interesting. I would definitely also consider f4. Now, why not, I guess queen g3, maybe just rook d3 or something like that. Now, I definitely am in favor of e5. In fact, for me, f4, the only thing I need to worry about was that queen g3 move, but I don't think it was doing anything for a move like rook d3. And the reasons to believe in this position are you just killed the knight and you're about to kill the bishop. I thought his only hope g5 is now impossible because bishop f2 will trap his queen. I wonder if that's true, by the way. I agree with you that g5 is the move. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, good. So we missed g5, and the problem is bishop f2, queen f4. Okay, good. Again, so we have the static advantages, and black has the possibility of messing with us. All right, so now, again, a big moment. We have knight d5, bishop b5, and we're assuming that bishop f3 has a problem. Now, bishop f3 is arguably the same as bishop b5. If, for example, we say that that is the main variation, then we can say, hey, that would also happen after bishop f3. Right. Okay. So, knight d5. Now we're threatening bishop f2. Okay, now we're going to get a beautiful variation here. Now, let's just see, gf4 is his only shot, right? So I guess, this certainly looks pretty for white. White has a wide variety of moves here. But we should still consider this for Mr. Black. Especially like we have got to believe in our position. We could do a lot of different things here. Okay, but we should put this in there in the notes. Rook f4. One thing for sure that would be helpful here, Nicholas, is if you put in the times. So, for example, one thing I've noticed about King's Indian games is it's very common that even by move 22, like it's a weird opening because like the first, 10 moves often, black plays like a monkey, just, same old setup. They play the same moves no matter what white does, right? But then it gets really hot. And then often, very often, both players go into time trouble. And so that would be useful to see here. So bishop f2, definitely a big question for us. h4, now it comes with tempo. And now we hose him. Yeah, very nice variation. Well, obviously, if you saw this far, you don't need to you don't need to ask for the evaluation. Yeah, I think it's totally done. Okay. I think, yeah, it's totally over. It's just, horrendous. And the knight still hasn't fixed itself. So nice variation. Now, again, so it'd be nice to know the times. And, right. Now some weird stuff happens. One thing, actually, just to note, this is for anybody watching, is the games we had a couple games already where it played at the 2000, 2100 level, where somebody just played passively, right? Thinking it didn't matter, or just like, didn't understand the urgency of the moment. That's how it feels to me here as well. With black having played a couple moves that were passive, bishop d7, king h8, and now white doing this thing. Yeah. Okay. So now, bishop e5, which is certainly the natural move. I get it, rook e5 is a problem. And notice with the king's Indian bows. You make one mistake, and it's like, oh, it could really go downhill. Right, so bishop e5, natural, but allowing this. Good move. Black, by the way, it's still about the knight on h6, okay? It's still about the knight. Black should at least consider bishop g7. Once we lose those dark squares, it's a real problem for us. Right, yeah, this knight f4, it's almost like there was, maybe in the other variation too, you were blind to it. Almost for sure, like you were blind to the backwards motion of the knight, right? Follow on e4, I'm glad you're here, Vows. Now, I want you to be sensitive to the weirdness of your rook on f4. Okay, natural move. By the way, one thing I'll be interested in is, and this will just be a thing that, you guys have heard me rant on forever, is how long will it take for black to do something active with the knight on h6? Okay, rook ft4 makes more sense. Here you're just trying to consolidate, right? It would be good here to put some sense of what you thought was happening, right? Do we think we have compensation for our pawn? What do we think is happening? Buckduck says he wasn't, in chat he says he wasn't low on time, but here he says he's only got 5 minutes left. Come on, what is it, buddy? Now, the other thing I want to say about rook f2 is both players should be hypersensitive to their knights needing some help. I want to put your knight back on this square, for example. And black's knight, I'm not sure what to do with yet, but I just know it's got to be fixed. And I stress that because I know that at this level, it's often the case that players just leave their bad pieces just hanging out. Right? So this move, for example, the real problem with this is it doesn't help me understand where your knight's going to go next, because it's either got to come through here or it's got to come through here. And now it's going to be very difficult for him to do anything like that. Okay, so now, again, I don't know what he should do, but it should involve the knight. Maybe there's nothing to do with the knight right away. I'm just telling you guys, I know about this kind of thing. So notice with b5, b4, the dude is kind of just encouraging your knight to fix itself. Yeah, no, you should say thank you. You want me to fix it, Baus? I'll fix it. I'll fix it. So that said, we should ask ourselves, what should he do? What should black play here? Now, the default move, if you were just going to play, like if you were playing a blitz move, would be c6. To protect the pawn, you know, that would just be like the first thing to come to mind, to play c6. Okay. So again, here's the interesting question. We would believe black has the advantage here because of the extra pawn, and because especially that rook bf1 didn't look right. But I will have to do something with my knight if I expect to really hurt white in this game. So for example, c3, c6, excuse me, something like that seems in order from white. He's intending knight e2. And then probably queen e7, just to say no lo puedo for you, buddy. Yeah, we might have more frisky moves than that, but that would be a first thought. I really need to prevent knight e2 f4. Okay, so here it comes. b5. Here I'm totally with you. Rook 3 f2. Now, in the notes, will Buck Duck say this move is about the knight? Let's see what he says. Safeguarding my king before anything else, especially in time trouble. First, a3, then rook 3 f2 is also a good move, but hard to say if black can use the b4. Right, so he doesn't say it's about the knight. Actually, no, he draws an arrow. Or did I draw that arrow? I think he drew the arrow. He also talks about queen f2 and a3. I don't understand a3. Okay, so b4. c5, very frisky. So, let's talk. B takes c5. I'm just looking. Okay, I think things are happening here which dude didn't appreciate. So imagine this. Let's think about the position simply in terms of the knight. Okay, so imagine knight takes b5, rook e2, queen c3. I'm just thinking about the knight. So now he can't mate me, and he goes here. I now have an active knight, and dude does not. Now, do I understand what's happening here necessarily? No. But I know that I'm very close to holding this game. Right? I'm very close to holding this together. So now the problem here is now my queen won't be able to get to the c3 square. And then I guess I'm toast. Yeah, and he's eventually going to fix the knight. Okay. First, I want to say that was a great annotation. You know, again, it's okay if I, disagree with some stuff or whatever. There's a lot that you took away from that. Clearly, you're going to get a lot stronger by going over the games like that. One thing I want to say, and I talked about this in a video series I did, like how to make, it starts at like how to make 800, how to make 900, goes all the way up. And I want to say what really is this game could be used as an example for is that both players didn't appreciate fixing their bad piece. Right? And, again, one of the things I want to stress about is if you tell players, like, let's say you're having coffee and you're like, yeah, you should fix your bad piece. No one's going to disagree. It's not like someone's going to say, oh, Kraai, wow, I never thought about that. You big jerk. But but when you get to an actual game, we see here, it's very common that they don't fix their business, right? It's just the thing that often happens. And I would play on in this position here, definitely not rook b3, but just king f2. We're lost, but the guy I'm not going to resign until he fixes his knight. Thank you very much. Here, for example, knight g8. Okay. So that was great. That was absolutely great. All right, let's go back. So Buck Duck is in. And we might look at some more of his games, but let's continue looking at the cohorts games. So, I want to look at people I haven't looked at yet. There's Santon again. That might be the same one. Let's look here. Oh, I might have seen this actually when I did the graduation show. Okay, good. A wasted tempo. Okay, so sample game. H3 is obviously a weird move. Now I just want to say, at this level, what are you going to get? You're going to get people who don't understand time, fixing their pieces. And again, if you were to have the coffee conversation, they'd say, of course I understand time. But then you see it here with moves like h3. Poor move. Yeah. And this is an important thing to understand why it's poor. And you see here in this position, this is a little bit, actually, let me show you what I think is the typical plan that white should understand. So d3, a3. Let's just play a5 for a second. You don't have to. Let's just play knight e1, knight c2. And to get this before d5 happens, and then when we put a knight, we put it this way. So that if there's a series of trades, white trades, black trades everything off, we end up getting the unopposed light square bishop. And this is kind of let's call it a theoretical position. Also here, knight e1 is a very topical move. If I remember, I remember this. So a3. If you're going to do a3, by the way, this is kind of the cool position to do it. Because now I'm actually threatening b4. I'm not threatening to do it until... I'm not threatening to do it with d3 in because my knight will be exposed with e4. So we would like to get black to do that. And if not, we're going to play b4 as a pawn sack. Now d3, knight e7, knight e1, bishop e6, knight c2. Last chance at the OK corral. And then we go pop, pop, pop. I believe this is a theoretical position. But the point that made me just say about this game is white wants to put this knight onto d5, right? And we see why in this game, because now that pawn's a chump and white's pieces don't really make sense. Okay, so here we go. Knight d2. And now f5 was played. I just want to say f5 is certainly like a very thematic and good-looking move. Okay. So good. So the idea of b5, let's call it, is a prophylactic maneuver to prevent a4, knight c4 stuff. And he's saying after f5, white needed to play a4. Now, let me just say, if I was white, I would be terrified of this variation. Because the knight going to c4 isn't going to solve my problems necessarily. And the knight kind of wants to wait here to go to e4 when black pushes past. So for example, I would continue this variation with g5. And the second he ever plays knight c4, that's my cue to start attacking. So maybe the computer likes b5. I think I understand. One cool thing is, for example, in this position, you get knight c4, but there's no later b4. So in that variation I just did, one concern for black could be here, and then later bishop d2, b4. Or at least white feels like they're doing something, right? Okay, so here we go, f5. I agree with it. e4 is horrendous. e4 is horrendous. And now h6 I don't like. And you're talking about b5. But why isn't this a clear advantage to black? King's Indian style, my friend. Let's roll this dude, man. Am I missing something? It looks amazing to me. We're going to roll this guy. All right, h6 would be one. Again, roll him. It's time to roll him. He has committed crimes. And now clearly b5 works even stronger. g5. Oh, I don't like it. Okay, I think I know what's going on, by the way. Black is thinking, if I play f4, white will play g4, and I will have nothing. No, you continue to have the juice, my friend. You continue to have the juice. You are going to play g5, knight g6, h5. We're still, the party's still going on. The party still continues. Yeah. So, whereas now, when we play f5 the way we did, and following it up with g5, we are neglecting, where's this stuff here? When we play g5, we are neglecting what every Russian schoolboy knows, which is that you always take back with the pawn. Because now, if white had understood that pawns are people, he could have played this move. And the point here is that this white gets these squares, and it's an unclear position. Yeah, it's just an unclear position. Once that knight comes to e4, oh no. How are we ever going to win? This guy's a chump. Yeah. Okay, so a3, b5, b4, and bishop a3 is indeed a sad move to play. Is it necessary? So here I want white to at least consider other moves. Black to consider other moves for white, because bishop a3. Did I say something about people not being sensitive to bad pieces? It's a good example of the threat being greater than the execution. Because nota bene, once a3 is played, that's white's side of the board. It's not clear that the pawn is just going to queen. It's not clear at all. So white should at least consider taking the pawn. Okay, so finally we consider f4 here. Finally. If you want to play a King's Indian style setup, you got to be ready to push f4, buddy. And g4 is also interesting. I like f4 better. Here, 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 here is your variation. Now, I want to stress one reason you're going to be better in all of these positions is simply this bishop is no one knows what it's doing over there. So it's like you're going to be better in every single position. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So bishop d7, slow. And you stop here, but we're doing great here with h5 and or knight g6. I like your g4 move. I think you're really strategically on. I mean, as long as he doesn't fix his bishop, you're just crushing this dude. g4 is still there. f4 is still there. And now you lose your mind and play fe4. Yeah. Now, if I was white, I would want to consider knight takes e4. Yeah, I definitely want to consider it. Because look at my knight, how pretty it is. Both players are assuming that the pawn falls, and maybe it does. I'm going to be agnostic about it for a second. But I do have this move. And on this move, I'm at least going to talk about that move. Okay, but let's leave that as just something I think both players weren't aware of the idea. We fix the bishop. Did you notice that? We just fixed the bishop. Queen d4. And now dude deliberately goes back. Deliberately goes back. And here's where we should really consider other moves for white. Bishop a3 is so sad. So knight b1 is at least a thought for us. Right? With the intention that queen b4, bishop here. And we want to do things like that. Excuse me, knight c3. I do not want to have my bishop over here, Mouse. Okay, now rook c8. Note, you're not fixing your pieces. Who needs to get fixed? These guys need to get fixed. And white actually has these ideas. And notice you kind of encourage him to do it. Because he's worried about rook c3, and then when he finds knight b1, he might say to himself, oh, maybe I have bishop b2, right? So this would be a moment to think about other moves for you. We really need to fix these two pieces. He cannot play rook c1 yet. So one basic idea is knight c8 to b6, so that if he ever moves a knight, we play knight c4. Another idea is h5, g4 to maybe get the bishop out this way. Another idea is h5, h4, so that we tickle this pawn and hope for knight g6, f4. h5 now is actually a blunder, or it seems like a blunder because of knight f3. So that move's probably out. But we can, of course, prepare it. Oh, you know. Even king h7, g6 isn't the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Okay, so rook c8. Notice, this kind of helps white. Now we have to worry about bishop b2. Now I think maybe white missed it, right? So here, let me just check. Here, here. Maybe that's our grief. I mean, once that pawn falls, I'm just real nervous, you know? I'm real nervous. Rook c2, queen h5, and I'm just nervous. Yeah. Rook c2, I might be able to play knight d2 as well because the knight on e7 is hanging. He fixes it. I'm not sure about rook c4. Now, Paolo, I want you to notice all these things you're doing, you're not fixing your boys. And now as that's sad, notice you're not fixing your boys. That's the thing that's got to be on your radar here. Good. I don't know if that's the right move, but I'm just really happy you're fixing the thing. Now, the thing is, after f3, the structure's changed, and now we need to think of a different way of doing something with our knight, because it's starting to look like our knight is dominated where it stands. One option is to think about king g6, h5, g4. We got to do something. And now let me just say something. Here you've run out of gas in both your game and the analysis, right? And what's happening is when you say bishop e8, you know, here's where we got to start thinking. We got to start thinking, Bobs, because this is a crime just going back and forth. And I think white had other plans too here. I'm not sure he needed to rush this. Not sure he has a plan here. Good. Absolutely. So that's great. We should look for ways for white to stop that plan from happening. What is white just bringing in the king? Does they actually have an idea? I'm not sure. We did look at this game, by the way, ages ago. Okay, I think there was problems with this game, but I'm going to feature it at the very least. This is a strong cohort, man. These will get some games. Let me just say the obvious: as we go up the cohorts, we get stronger and stronger games, right? stronger and stronger games. Okay. So, Thomas Nielsen. Boom. Here's a question from Malform. Maybe a little question that could be addressed in the book. I sometimes wonder what the best approach is to variations where I can see 3 moves deep but then run out of understanding what the opponent might do if the line is not forced. One option there might be, but I'm not sure whether that's a good idea or not, to put the variation down, then ask LCO, the computer, just for that one move from the opponent and come up with your own answer. No, what you're asking is a position where you have to have some positional understanding, right? And that's what you need to practice when the lines aren't forced, right? So don't turn on the computer then. You can remember, you can always, a lot of people think I'm opposed to the computer. I'm just opposed to the computer at the beginning, at the very end of your analysis. I think it's fine. So Thomas is doing some good work, but it's not enough for the big book or whatever. Here, let's look at Dylan. Might have looked at this. Yeah, I think I did look at this at some point. Did I feature it? No. We had a similar thing with a nose game where bishop f4 was played, not understanding that black wants to play e5 anyway. Okay, and here we need to say what you should have done instead. Good. Black is putting on a little bit of a clinic here. Okay, good notes. Yeah, Black's definitely doing good. You gotta do something, yay me. Natural move. You know, G6 is a little bit weird. Now, here, if Dylan's watching this thing, I would want him to find e4 without the computer, right? And to criticize g6 just being like bows, that's potentially, it just feels unnecessary, right? There's so other moves, even if you don't play e4, you can think about moves like rook f6 followed by rook a f8. Clearly, Black is I know Justin quite well, has some kind of idea with g6, and it would be good for us to even understand what it is, because I don't know what it is yet. Maybe it's king g7, knight g8, f6. I don't know. Let's see what it is actually. Now he plays e4. And let's just say h5 doesn't make. Come on, come on, buddy. h5. Give me a break. Okay, so now e4, and it's certainly true that like if we were going to play e4, why did we need g6? I don't know. And here I would want Dylan to be like, did I analyze the position after f4? Right? If I did, then you can consider king h1 here, right? Okay, great notes. 94, genius. Oh man, now we got some juice, buddy. We got some juice. Okay, let's go into this. We calculated GH5. Bishop F5. I thought this was working, but then HG. We also could, Queen C7 is also the other thing, right? Very nice. Really interesting variations. From a human point of view, there's there's all kinds of things. Could the rook have taken on e6? These kinds of things would be questions. And the other question, of course, is just gf5. And I'm presuming the computer says something here, but this would have been the other thing that would have made it hard to play GH over 96. And he doesn't say anything here. Oh, cool. Paul184 says Dylan is playing at Sitges. I think I did see him there. Yeah. And he's in deep time pressure here. Wow. Do I understand this? King h7. No, I want to say I'm not sure I get it. Yeah, I'm not sure I get it, but so, for example, the computer might have something here. We at least have to say something. I sound like a 80-year-old smoker with bronchitis. When he says he's got king h7 and rook f6 for equality, it sounds like f5, rook f6 or something. But on f5 doesn't do to just have knight e5? Okay, wait. Maybe it's like this. f5, knight e5, and now we claim that we're the ones who have the nuts with queen g5. Might be true. But see, this is the kind of thing you'd have to analyze. When you turn on the computer, it might seem like obvious, but I'm sure like in a game, it's not going to be necessarily obvious. Yeah. Okay. So, rook e1. Now I have a feeling if we're going to say this is clear advantage and this is winning, that we made a mistake somewhere in here. Now I could go in there and try to figure out where the mistake was, or maybe I decide you were losing all along. But obviously that's something that Dylan needed to put in there. Okay, let's feature this game. Definitely some problems, but also some really cool analysis in here as well. All right, that's Coach Q. Check out, dudes. He's got all kinds of stuff going on. Okay, I think I want to do one more, and then I got life issues that I got to deal with. I always think of this guy as Ulf Anderson because he kind of looks like Ulf Anderson in his picture. It's not actually Ulf. That's not Ulf. So here we go. Wait, do I have this? Hold on, let me just look. I might have looked at this in the last cohort. I don't know if I might not have put it in, but I feel like I looked at this in the last cohort. Seems obvious that there's a lot of questions here that aren't being asked. Yeah. Okay. Not bad annotations. Definitely need to tell me, do you think you're winning on bishop d5? You know? What do you think's going on? And White, let's just say the obvious, White White wasn't thinking too much about their pieces bows. So for example, at this position, right? White needs to start figuring out where to put their pieces. And instead, look what they do. So at the very least, we have to criticize and ask, well, what should White have done instead, right? Okay. Let's see if I can get one more in. I want to do somebody I haven't seen. Saiku chess. Okay. It's fine. C takes e4 in my head is a minor inaccuracy, because now it allows White a very pleasant Carlsbad structure. Actually, let me share a story that maybe some people will find illuminating. A very common variation you see against the Caro-Kann is this one, where they play the fanciful c3, bishop d3, bishop f4, and the intention is to wait for black to get e6, right? And then we claim that White has a sizable positional advantage. So, what happened? What just happened? This happened, my friends. We got it. Okay. So 95. Decided on 95, but immediately regretted it. Right, so the thing strategically to understand is whether we play bishop g3 or bishop d6, the intention is for us to sit on that e5 square and to claim that if black plays e5 at some point, that we have a good isolated queen pawn structure, because the black has lost their good dark square bishop. They're going to lose their good dark square bishop in any case over here. So 95. And he talks about queen c7. By the way, 95, if you can hold it there, it's certainly fine. Now, does he say who this I I colon. Does he talk it? No, he doesn't talk at the beginning of who it is. I exchange a strong controller of the positional play for another interesting proposition. This is about knight d7. I'm afraid that it is too soon. Can black not force e5 now? Oh my god, and he goes into this deep think about knight takes d4 here. Wow, this is certainly highfalutin. Ah. Okay, knight d7. And I definitely do not want to play bishop e5. Maybe I have no choice, but I don't want to do it. Really cool that we have the times here. Abdul's like, we looked at this yesterday, buddy. Morphe fan, thank you for subscribing. I don't know if it was yesterday, but you know. I think the last game we looked at yesterday, sorry. Yeah. I have a vague memory of looking at the knight takes d4 stuff. I'm just seeing if there's some way we can get out of dodge here. Bishop a3, e5 is uncomfortable. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. So, wait a second. But black is now fine. And queen b6. Castles. Now, by the way, I would be concerned about queen b2. This one's hard to believe in. That one's is hard to believe in for me. Yeah, it looks winning. Okay. So queen b2, that would be the big question. Although that's a good note. That's a good note. Okay, so this all goes down. Queen d8 is definitely strange. It's definitely strange. Okay, interesting. I mean, at the very minimum, bishop e4 is also a clear advantage. Now he goes for it big time with castles. That's the manly man's move right there. That's the manly man's move, man. That's a manly chess. Okay, bows. Hold on. Hold on. If this is what's happening, we need to talk about a couple things. One is, isn't that just pleasant for a peasant and we don't have to worry about life at all? You know? Yeah, that's just joy. That's like, no questions there, my friends. So I'm not sure I understand queen e4. I mean, sure, it's still fine, but we need to find a move. Well, you just castle, buddy. Just castle, man. But notice, this is a big improvement in comparison to the other position, because at least now the bishop is doing something, right? All right, castles is madness. Holy catoles, this guy doesn't care about anybody. Okay, but you need to talk about what you wanted to do instead. So he's not a fan of g5, but what do you want black to do, bud? Right? You want to play queen g7? What do you want him to do? And what's the eval? This is straight up winning for my boy. All right. This is straight up winning for your boy. Ah, nice. Okay, there were elements of that game that I really liked. Lame resign, nice kill. G5, a critical blunder, which you punished well. We needed to say what he should have done. Okay, so this is reviewed with a coach. This is chicken scratch, right? He's going into move 40 something, where here, honestly, you should just stop. You can take on c6, but you can also castle. White's got a huge advantage. Huge advantage. So, yeah, this is an example of where the variation goes too long. Okay, but I will feature it. I don't copy GM. I'll feature this game. Actually, I'll do one more thing before I go. I'm going to look. Did I miss anybody? Oh, there's Jordan. All right, one more. Bows, you got to get out of here. Oh, this is potentially a good game, too. Uh-oh. Kraai, you got to get out of here. There's a chess club today, and here's a fun story I'll just tell you. Foxwoods. It used to be back in the day. Okay, yeah, we need to talk about some of these moves. Back in the day, it was like a big thing to be like in the newspaper. And it's funny now just to think like nowadays the newspaper, like the local newspaper here in Baltimore, I've never even looked at it. Anyway, some local newspaper is going to do a story. An old man cried today. They're going to have somebody at the chess club. So that's why I got to get ready to go. It's kind of, I take the kids to the chess club anyway on Sundays. But it's kind of like back in the day with the newspaper articles. They used to like occasionally, like when they ran out of stories, they were like, let's go interview Kraai, that guy, the weird dude. And so they're kind of doing the same thing to me here. It's free copy for them. But it used to be like, I don't know, like in the same way, like if I wanted to advertise Chess Dojo or something, I would want to go on podcasts and whatnot. And, now to get in the newspaper, big deal, right? Big deal. I don't really care. But I've sold the kids on the idea that they might get their picture in the newspaper. And so I got to bring it. Okay, you guys, that was a great session. I might consider, I'm going to see what I got for this 202100. In general, I want to conclude by saying I'm happy to say we definitely have 5 good games annotated for the dojo in this cohort, and we'll see what it looks like in the next cohort, probably tomorrow morning. Okay, we're going to raid somebody. Oh, let's raid GM Naxons, friend of the dojo. And I'm not going to be around later, but Kostya and David will be playing about 10:45 at Sitges. There, that games, you can follow that on Chess.com. Also, Lenier drew yesterday, I believe, to the dude that beat Kostya. So that was not a revenge kill from Lenier. And it's a bummer. And David lost, unfortunately, yesterday. So, but Kostya won. Wasn't on the big screen. So I'm assuming David will not be visible and Kostya will on this coming round. All right, bye everybody.